Hey, Rachel.
Hi.
How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing better, I think, than our previous sessions, but I'm okay.
Good, good. Hey, today we've got a lot of ground to cover, so I want to kind of go through the assessments that we did a couple weeks ago now. I apologize for the delay, but I do want to take a look at what we found and kind of share with you results. I'm going to explain to you what they mean, and then we'll kind of go through it. I don't want to spend a lot of time once we've gone through the assessment. We'll take a little time. We'll start doing a deeper dive, but I'm going to take about 10 minutes just to dive into some of the highlights of the assessment. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
First and foremost, thank you for doing these. It's extremely helpful. They're all just measures. These do not define you in any way, so please know that. And I know that sometimes you get anxious with these tests, and I just think you did a fabulous job of making sure everything was answered. So good job on that. I did have one question for you. When you were taking this test, before I give you the results, how did you feel as you were taking these tests? Um, Talk to me a little bit, just briefly, on how you felt as you were going through this process.
Yeah. Um, so before I took them, I was super nervous, but I remember we talked about it, and it relieved like a lot of my anxiety. So while taking them, I really felt fine. I didn't really feel stressed out about it. Um, I think I'm feeling a little more stressed again now just because I'm scared of what they're gonna say, but during the test, I think I felt okay because of what you said.
Well, remember, these are going to be feelings that you had at the time you took the test. When you took the test, was there anything that happened prior to coming to class at all? Did you have a fight with your boyfriend, or did anything like that happen that when you came in caused you a little more stress than normal by chance?
No, I felt like when I was taking them, I just kind of like thought about kind of like how I was feeling like that week and like for the past couple of weeks.
Okay.
So more of like a average of how I've been feeling instead of like that day. But I don't remember anything significant happening before I took them.
Okay. Okay, let's get started. The Beck Anxiety Inventory. So the Beck Anxiety Inventory basically is a self-reporting tool. It's an instrument to measure anxiety. And the way that that tool is set up, you answer the 21 questions, and the scoring sounds something like this. We score it as low anxiety, which is 0 to 21. There's a moderate anxiety, which is 22 to 35. And there's a high anxiety or concerning levels of anxiety that's 36 and above. Okay. Your score came in about 20, which means you were at uh, the high side of low anxiety. But again, um, these tests are all basically, uh, how would you call it? They're all correlated with other studies and populations. So just know that these are just basically average type scores that you have. So you're kind of right in there where you need to be, so to speak. Um, so that one didn't concern me as much as the one on depression concerned me a little bit more. You scored a 28 on the BDI. Now, the Beck's depression inventory is basically the same type of test, but now we're looking at depression. And let me give you the ratings on those. Um, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but well, let me give you all of them because that would be helpful. 1 to 10, you kind of have the normal ups and downs. 11 through 16, you have a mild mood disturbance. Again, so things could be happening. 17 to 20, borderline clinical depression. 21 to 30, moderate depression. 31 to 40, severe depression. And over 40, extreme depression. Now, you scored on your BDI, the Beck's depression inventory, you scored a 28, which puts you right around the moderate depression area. That's why I asked you the question. I was a little surprised actually. That's why I asked you about test anxiety. That's why I asked you before I started giving you these results. what you were feeling? Was there something that may have occurred before you came in? Because again, these don't define you. That may have been at the moment. And what I want to do, just to kind of give you a little more peace, we will do these tests again in order to see where you're at, because there's a continuum and you may feel differently after each of our sessions as we move forward, as we spend more time together. I just want you to feel like this is where this says you are now, but it doesn't mean that's where you're going to stay. But it does concern me that you're feeling a lot of depression. Let me ask you some pointed questions. Have you ever thought about suicide?
No.
Okay. Have you ever committed or tried to commit suicide?
No.
Okay. And I ask those questions because, again, given certain questions on this test, you answered somewhat severe. So those are things we want to talk about. And again, that will come as we continue moving and working on this together. I see a lot of concern on your face. I just need you to know it's going to be great. We're going to work through this. We're going to get through it together. Just know, again, that these are just, again, surveys. They basically indicate to us as clinicians where you're at, what the severity levels are. And here's the deal. You may not have even realized, or you may not even have shared maybe something with me that requires us to talk about something maybe even deeper. So this is a wonderful tool to tell me that yes, you're anxious, but you might have other things that are even deeper that we need to really go over that can really lead to some really wonderful healing for you. Does that sound good to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the last one is kind of the fun. It's the PF16. It's kind of a personality test. And on this one, there's multiple factors. There's what we call the global factors, which is kind of what we looked at. Again, we will dive into these a lot deeper when we meet next week. But you basically, there's 5 factors that we look at. First of all, let me kind of explain to you. It's the bless you. The personality test basically assesses your personality, but this guy could tell what he basically did was he tried to structure personality in such a way where he's able to see if there's something clinical that I need to be concerned about as a clinician. Is there something that's in your personality that's causing you behavior that's not helping you? That's kind of what this does. To put you at ease, there's nothing that you had in this particular segment that causes me any concern. I did see um, there's interesting things like there's extroversion, which basically talks about your social orientation, like how you are amongst people. Independence, how you interact with each other. Obviously, do you like being alone? Those kinds of things. Tough mindedness, um, how you basically process information, the extent to which you solve problems. That's basically what that looks like. Self control, basically your internal discipline. You know, are you self controlled? You get kind of wild sometimes, and then anxiety, which we've touched on a little bit. The emotions you experience, and even the intensity. And those are the basic global, what we call global factors that we're going to be looking at. So the first one, extroversion. In this global factors, we have what we call the standard 10. And so high is kind of considered 7 to 10, and low is like 1 to 4. That's kind of the range. So again, not good, not bad. It's just what it is. So with that said, an extroversion, you came in at a 4 at the lower end, more to the introverted side. So that was, you like being alone. Again, I think it probably makes sense to you. And again, we'll dive deeper here next week, but you can see how I've seen the crazy, wonderful Rachael and how she just loves to interact. And then I've seen the Rachael that sometimes just wants to be by herself. In independence, you scored a 7. So in that, you can explain or influence other people and not be influenced by them necessarily. So you're a pretty independent gal, which really kind of ties into the tough mindedness, which is you scored a 5, which is kind of in the middle. And in that factor, it's the extent to which you solve problems. You through this whole section, I thought it was fascinating how you're a problem solver. You like dealing with problems. You like working with people. I mean, it was fascinating to see how much of service you like to be. So I really enjoyed watching that, learning that about you. Self-control. Self-control is your response to your environment around you, how you regulate your emotions. You scored a 4 on that, which is more on the introverted side. And then anxiety was a 4, which is again more on the lower side. Again, not good, not bad. It's just some of the themes of what's happening with you personality wise. Again, I know it's a lot of information, but in our next session, we'll do a deeper dive in probably independence and anxiety. Those are the two that I really want to focus on when we connect next week. We have this thing called the Holland themes, which is kind of more a vocational evaluation. I know sometimes you're talking about, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And this is going to be a wonderful exercise or a wonderful assessment in terms of sharing your strengths. And you answered the question. So all it does is reveal what your strengths are that you may not have been aware of before. So the 3 strengths that really stood out in this assessment was artistic, investigative, and social. So let me explain. Artistic, let me pull it up here. The artistic side obviously is, you're self-expressive. You love art, music. It made a lot of sense. You're taking your drum lessons. I just thought that was just right on, and that's Rachel. The investigative part of it was quite fascinating too, because that really reveals that you love to learn. You love to learn. You enjoy using logic. You're scholarly. You're very smart in the sciences, mathematics. That's what it reveals. I don't know if that's true or not, or you may not. You may have thought you were very smart, but by all indications, given what you're showing here, you're probably a very bright gal if nobody ever told you that before. And then finally, social. I thought the social one was quite interesting because you're showing some signs of introversion on the one side of the spectrum, but then you're showing social, outgoing. You are a 7 on that particular scale, which is more on the extroverted side or the more social side. So there's a lot of good things working here. Again, it doesn't define you. All these are just a myriad of tests that basically give you kind of an insight into who Rachel is, how she may think. And then what we're going to do is we're going to dive into some of these elements, and we're going to go into seeing what part of these elements are serving you and what part of these elements are not serving you. So that's the assessment process. I gave you a lot of information. Share with me your concerns, share with me your thoughts. What's going on for you right now?
Yeah, I think I'm like looking forward to our next sessions and just kind of seeing like what these mean and looking deeper into them. So I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Okay, we'll dive into it next week and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good week.
Thanks, you too. Okay, feedback. Um, First I thought you did like a really great job summarizing each assessment. You picked out the key points, and it was really easy for me to understand what these assessments were about. I really liked that. I also thought you were so encouraging. I liked when you're like, we're like investigating Rachel, and like you did encouragement in such an organic way. That I felt really good about it. I was like, oh, cool, like this is me. And I loved how you highlighted like this doesn't define you. This is just giving us some insights and some different things. And it felt good when you're like, it's so interesting, like learning about you. Like it was very encouraging in a very organic way. And I really appreciated that. I think my one like feedback would be I was already nervous about the depression thing, and when you said this concerned me, then I was like, I'm really concerned now. So I would say just maybe changing the language about that if you have a client who's like scared about what that, because like I went into it like knowing I'm gonna get like told I have depression, and so I think just kind of soothing that anxiety would have been beneficial. But you did come around, and I really liked how at the end you're like, we're gonna get through this together, and like we're gonna look at what like is going on here. And it was like reassuring that you're like, you're not in this alone. We're here together, and we're here to make you feeling better. So I thought that that was good. But that was good.
All right.
Yeah, I kind of got the sense that you're trying really hard to time frame,
To
and I don't know if that was
to
like
what?
that you were trying
You
to keep it down, that you were
oh
trying to keep it within a certain time frame.
oh yeah. It did feel a little rushed, but I did want to get as much information as possible. So yeah.
Right, right. And I mean, obviously being aware of the time is important. So, um, but I think overall, because of that, I felt like you didn't really check in with her as much as you maybe could have,
Mhm.
to say, here is what the test says. What is your reaction to that? You kind of interpreted it for her and said, this is what it means for you, or maybe it doesn't. And then you went on to the next one. I'm like, what you could ask her. you know?
Mhm.
But again, I think the function of trying to get through the material in a short amount of time. Or I should ask you, do you think that's what it was?
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Um,
Anything
I,
else?
I oh, yeah, I had there were some little things just, when you said thank you for doing this, it made it sound like she was doing a favor to you, and I mean, it's very small, it's just a detail, but it's just kinda like if you're thinking of the client as, trying to please you, or you might give them that impression that they're here to please
Mm,
you and follow directions and, um, make you happy, that can kind of indicate that, so that's why I brought it up. Um,
well, good
and then
stuff. Thank
I
you.
actually had a yeah, I actually had a question about the 16 PF. You said that it's, about that it could highlight personality factors that maybe are not serving you well, which sounds like because I don't think it's a test that measures psychopathology, but I kind of got that impression from the way you explained it.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the way I worded it was not totally correct because it's not right or wrong. That's important. It's not right
Okay.
or
Yeah.
wrong. It was just there's sometimes I think what I was trying to go and get in a very
Right.
short time is there's certain behaviors that we're performing through our personality that are not serving what we're trying to achieve in our life, whatever the case might be. Um, but anyways, that's a
Okay.
whole
So
different
what?
conversation. But you are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that.
Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. But yeah, I mean, you definitely uh, you worked hard to explain everything, and you were very encouraging. I saw that. So um, yeah,
All right.
cool.
Thanks,
Hmm.
ladies.
Thanks.